Good morning. It's Judges Jules, and there's Simon Holden. Hello, Si. How did the weekend treat you?
Yeah, very well. Yeah, classic weekend. Shame the rain spoiled it to some degree, but you can't help that, can you?
Well, you can't. But I suppose putting a bit of water down wasn't the best idea with the forecast coming in. But there we go. We're not going to have too much of a negative field today. I was pleased to say we finally got a winner on with the Guineas winner. I don't want to rub it in too much after you've given me such a hard time.
Yeah, good call, mate. Chaldine did the business, and what a gamble.
God, 7-2. It was 8-1 though when we were talking, wasn't it? And, sevens into 7-2 in the morning. And then we didn't even. We also give the two outsiders that ran a good race, didn't we? The one that come fifth, the Johnson horse ran a good race, coming fifth, would have been fourth in another stride or two, and even the second. He's out of the Convivial Maiden at York. Is never a bad race, and it was just one of them races, wasn't it? You could see there could be a turn up, and every year there's always a big price horse at the frame in the Guineas.
And people talk about why do you try and get these beat and things like that, but all I would say is the amount of people I know who slammed August Rodin in the 2000 and who super slammed the Dermot Weld filly in the I'm sorry, you came out away with nothing.
No, I think the second one you end up coming out a little bit unlucky. But the first, 13. They were both poor value. But out of the two, without doubt, the first one was the worst value I think I've seen in a long time. You knew it was going to be 5-1 in running at some stage, didn't you? So why are you trying to take 13-8 and even 2-1 beforehand?
And the filly is a seriously classic filly, but anybody who saw the interview with Chappers and Dermot Weld, who'd got slammed into that at about 15-8, would have felt very queasy. He virtually
absolutely. He said it wasn't much to be. To be fair, though, mate, she must be. How far clear were them two in the 1,000?
When you watch that video, you're tempted to ring the RSPCA, aren't you, about the state of the horse? But she ran great. But what I'm saying is,
I know, yeah.
They're not easy races to win. Even for very good horses, you've got to be 100% fit. You've got to be lucky in running. You've got to have the ground. It's all right saying this is an 11-8 steering job. They're not steering jobs. You've got to get that across, somehow to try and, if you get these beat or if you get a big price place. I nearly landed the 1,000 guineas last year with a Beckett horse.
That's right. Yes.
33-1 into 16s. But the thing is, the place part is far more than if you've hit the even money jolly.
Yeah. So there was no value in either of them, was there? Luckily, I come out the race breaking level myself on that particular race. I had sort of like 3 pokes and end up having the 4th and the 5th, so 4th and the 6th, if you like. But still broke level. So it's better than backing the loser, isn't it?
Yeah. No, it's not half the time, because if you watch Friday's video, we're very, very clear that those 2 Coolmore horses had big question marks against them.
Yeah.
That the prices didn't merit. One had been injured. We'd not seen it for ages.
Yeah.
It was going to run a longer trip on ground it might not like. And the favourite, you have to question whether that Group 1 futurity was any good at all.
Well, I'll tell you the other thing. The horse it beat, the Gosden horse, scraped home in the Derby trial at Epsom, didn't it? It didn't exactly.
Not impressive at all.
No, it literally fell over the line and won, didn't it? I didn't think that was like you at the time. I don't know what they were looking at, to be honest.
That's probably Dermot Weld.
That's probably getting a call from Dermot Weld. Yes, that's why I put the phone in the other room just in case we're doing the video. Anyway, we better crack on, hadn't we?
Yeah. Time is the no man.
Yeah, you're not wrong. So my first one goes in the tracker. I went to Thirsk on Saturday, and I just want to see what race it was in. It was in the Thirsk Hunt Cup. It was won by Northern Express. Normally around Thirsk, I think you agree, Si, over 7 furlongs and a mile, they tend to go too fast from the inside stalls, and you're better off to be on the outside. So irrespective, you listen to the pundits on the TV, they go, "Oh, you want to be low. Normally, you want to be high," but they were actually right on this occasion. The winner was drawn 2, and the third was drawn 1. So it does suggest that they didn't go too hard this time. But the one for me, it was the 340 at Thirsk, if you want to look at the race back. Keep an eye out for a horse called Billy B. It was drawn 14 of 15, and Duffield horse, ridden by Paul Hannigan. Well, it missed the break, which is not unusual, as Tom Jones would say. And as they turned into the home straight, it must have been a 3-length last. It was actually last. Pulled it wide, and with the minimal of effort, stayed on into 7th. For me, this horse is, and it wouldn't have been necessarily like the soft ground. So when we get some better ground throughout the summer, I'll be amazed if this doesn't pick up a decent handicap in its next 2 or 3 starts. So Billy B is my first one for the tracker.
Yeah, interesting race. What it proved, and I would definitely agree with you about Billy B. What it definitely proved to me after a good winner at Newmarket, that Michael Dodds, Northern Express, has got his horses in very rude hands,
Yes,
and they all want a double check. Pistonello did his
did his usual, came there and didn't get there, didn't he?
Battle against winning and failed again. Safe Voyage ran well after looking to me.
Yeah,
like
he's got to win soon, I think.
Yeah. I tipped a horse called Symbolize, who was hugely disappointing, the Camacho horse, who was well backed, and I know they think a lot of. I think the ground was probably too soft for that, but I can definitely see it with Billy B. Usually a good race, and I'm sure it was again, and I'm sure that winners will come out of this. There's never a bad Thurston Cup. Never a bad.
No, it goes under the radar a bit because I think he always throws up future winners, and they often run at York, don't they? Side later in the season.
Of course, all eyes are on Newmarket, so it's a race that can get forgotten.
Yeah, definitely. So that's my first one. I'm going to let you go next.
Very kind, mate. Now I go on Friday for my first one, both in Newmarket, for a race where we received some information very, very late about Midnight Affair. I'm on the way at the start from somebody at Newmarket about how well the horse looked, how strongly it was fancied, blah, 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 and, got stuck in late on. Now, Danny Tudhope rode this horse. It was in the 410 at Newmarket, a Class 2 maiden filly stake. It's a Clipper Logistics. Now, Fahy has not started the season particularly impressively by his own standards. Now, it came up against a horse called Soprano, who was a real big word horse in Newmarket for George Bowie, who's had so many winners. He booked William Buick, which is a really sometimes think we can overdo these jockey bookings, but Bowie seems to call for Buick when it's required, so always watch out for that. But the people who told us this were really not bothered. They so highly rated Midnight Affair that they didn't really give anything else in the race much of a chance if the horse turned up. Well, the horse did turn up, but she did turn up. But you have to say, Judge, on the widest race course in the world, I genuinely have no idea. Now, I know first time out that jockeys can be told to get cover, teach a horse out a race. I'll always cut a jockey slack on a first time out. However, don't take it from me. Watch the race. And you tell me anybody, even if you back Soprano, who I think is a good filly, that Midnight Affair was not the best horse in this race. He has got oodles of time to get the horse to a position where it could get a run. He switched too late. He's then had to switch again. He switched to the slowest part of the track. And by the way, I'm not suggesting anything untoward here. I'm just saying it was a rank, awful ride. Jockey was called in. Jockey said filly was denied a clear run. Well, if there's an Oscar for the bleeding obvious, Judge, I think it's going to be Mr. Tudhope, innit? I don't know what to say. People are going to think an element of sour grapes. And, of course, if you get in for late and you jump in, there is going to be some sour grapes. But I've watched it back about 5 times now, and I cannot understand why you didn't get this horse into a clearer run. I've said it again. It's the widest racecourse in the world. And on the world, so there's no reason at all really there. And if you're gonna come, at least come this near side or follow the winner through. I suspect, I don't know him, that he would hold his hand up and say, "My God, everything that could go wrong did go wrong." But let's move on from that and just say this: this is a hugely exciting filly, and losses are only lent. If Soprano is. And in the interviews after the win, I watched one with, I think, Lydia Hislop. I mean, Bowie was absolutely purring about Soprano, talking about Royal Ascot, talking about big group races. Well, if I'm right, I think that if they ever race again, I want to be on.
I know which one I want to be on. Yeah, definitely.
So if that is heading to Ascot and he's purring about competitive in group races, I think we've seen 2 exciting fillies. I'm going to forget what happened on Friday, focus on the future, and wherever this filly goes, we must get with her.
Oh, for me, I mean, you wouldn't turn into a cul-de-sac where it's got the sign at the end saying, yeah, you can't go down there if you like, unless you're visiting, of course. But the point is, he went for a gap that wasn't there, and then had to yank back, and then he went for the same gap again. You think, well, what are you doing? That was the bit I thought. I mean, you can all go for one gap that's not there, but then go for the gap twice, and then, like you say, he sort of stumbled afterwards, and then got switched. I thought she was much the best, and actually they were quite way clear, weren't they, of the third. And these Newmarket early season two-year-old races can often be pretty useful. And like I wouldn't be too surprised she's not a decent price come. I'm guessing like the Albany or something like that at Royal Ascot. Yeah,
I would think so. And
I would imagine they tried to get a win out of her beforehand, wouldn't you think?
Rather than go straight. She went straight there.
Yeah,
wouldn't surprise me if she went straight there. Buick stays gun barrel straight the whole way.
Yeah, he does.
Good Hope comes off a clear line.
Yeah,
is blocked off.
Yeah,
comes off a clear line and goes right round all the horses.
Absolutely.
So he's running to a side while Buick's running in a straight line. Finally stumbles.
Yeah, and
then gets a clear on slower ground than Buick's on,
yeah,
and he's making ground.
Yeah.
Now
she did well to come second, didn't she? Really, I mean, it's a terrific run to come second. I mean, obviously, it depends how she comes out of it, where she's clipped heels, but all things being equal, I would rather be with her, and you'll probably get a bigger price. Well, you will get a bigger price. End of, because the other one's won George Bowie, whether yours has come second, So, yeah, I like that one, mate. Yep. Good pick.
There we go. Please, people, forget about the fact she lost and think about what we can do in the future. So that would be mine.
Right, well, my next one, I'm actually once again going to the aways on Saturday, and talking about the aways on Saturday. Did you see the going at Goodwood on Saturday? So it's like a paddy field. I knew it was going to be soft, maybe soft to heavy. I didn't think it'd be heavy to waterlogged, and you probably can take some of the results with a pinch of salt. But the race I was looking at was a 3:45, the 2 mile race, and I had it down between a match between Marker Gold and Tuddenham Green overnight. And the market told you the story. They were 2s and 3s overnight, and Marker Gold went off odds on, and Tuddenham Green went off 4-1, still fancied. So it did look a match on paper. The one I'm putting up here is Tibby Dunbar. She's a 7-year-old mare, so she hasn't got a lot of improvement necessarily in her, but she split these two horses here, and there was 5.5 lengths back to the fourth, Capone. So you basically, if you're taking it as a match race, this horse has got in amongst the 2 best horses in the race. And she really made Marker Gold pull out all its, the best there for the Gary Moore horse. Very well handicapped on its hurdles form, if you like. And they didn't miss it in the market, did they? But this horse ran really well off a marker 66. And on a previous run, she ran at Bath and just got beat by Tralee Hills. But the step up to 2 miles here on soft ground really saw some improvement. And she suddenly clicked into being a decent stayer, and I think there's a 0 to 70 in recent, in the next not too distant future with her name on, and I thought this was a really good run. Tibby Dunbar. Yeah,
and I think that she'll go up a couple of pounds, but you're right, she'll be able to sneak into 0 to 70s, or even stay at 0 to 75, and she would be on soft.
Yes.
Goodwood's a quirky track, so sometimes form can not transfer. However, you're right, she split 2 very well handicapped, good performers there. You've got to think an ordinary 0 to 70 or even 0 to 75 is at her mercy next time.
Yeah, and she probably won't be that fashionable either, because she's gone off 12 to 1 there, and she's not got the profile of her horse that, even if she probably deserves to be a 6 to 4 chance, she'll probably get 5 to 2 when she runs next.
Well, these are the horses that will get forgotten from the smaller yards. And I'll come to mine now, but there's an element of this being forgotten. So my second one ran in the 2000 Guineas. Now, caveats to the judge for giving the winner. The second, obviously, the Frankie factor, the media, the interviews. The second story, I know Ed Chamberlain interviewed Kevin Ryan, was, of course, the amazing run of High Royal in second, who deviated off a straight line. We'll never know whether he'd have won or not. But that was a bit concerning. But Ocean Murphy, who I thought rode all weekend like a demon, he straightened it late on and finished fair enough. Royal Scotsman's run gives the form some strength, because he kind of finished where he should have finished behind Chaldine, if you believe.
Yeah, exactly. They run to the Dewhurst form, didn't they?
Yeah, so when people
which
say
I was trying to nag you about on Friday, wasn't I?
Rightly so. This race won't play out, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
That they prove that it may well have been run to form. But what I never saw really, and it was mentioned on Racing TV, was the run of the fourth, Galeron, at 150 to 1, an even bigger price. Now, the Charlie Hills, who's got his horses in good form, Kieran Schumacher, I've watched this replay about 3 times. I've got to make him an eye catcher. And again, he's just gone under the radar. If you watch the start, he was very, very blocked off. Now, I'm not saying for a minute he would have won, but I'm sure it's cost him a couple of lengths. He might have bustled up Royal Scotsman for third. Yeah. So he's really been unfortunate at the start. Then he's made a really strong run and passed virtually everything. Now, you think of the sort of horses who were stuck at the back, who said, oh, couldn't get into it. Oh, it was, you had to be a front runner. I keep hearing trainers and pundits saying this about Flight Plan, August Rodin, Silver Knot, Indestructible, Holloway Boy, Sharon. Well, if you watch the replay, don't take my word for it, Galeron's back there with all of them. And he smoothly makes his way from the back once Schumacher's settled him after what happened at the start. He's used a lot of gas to get from the back to, not in contention, but fringe contention. And then he kind of like flattens out for a bit. Yeah. And then if you watch the end at the dip, Schumacher goes for him again, and the horse finds again to keep Noble Style and Dubai Mile at bay, who were 5th and 6th, and Sakir, who were in a bizarre race being held up by David Egan. I have no idea what he was doing on that. Galeron, surely you've got to think now in terms of Dantes and Derbies, and I was hugely impressed by that run. And if the form is solid and is genuine, and what makes me believe it might be is the run of Chaldine and Royal Scotsman, being so close together when they should have been. So I think they've probably run up to form. Then that was an incredible performance. And you know what, Judge? We try and get angles and things that people haven't seen or might not have thought about. I've heard very little about the run of this horse in the reviews of this race. He's run an absolute screamer at 150 to 1. And I think it was a genuine run. And I think he's going to win some big races this year. He's obviously going to get further. Whether he get a derby on breeding is, well, it's debatable. But his mare was out of Galileo. There's some hope. But around 1 mile 2, obviously handles soft. I think he's going to be a tool. And I would say to people, keep a very close eye. Keep an eye on the front 3, by all means. But Galeron is the forgotten horse of this race, but not by us.
It's another thing, isn't it? Sort of like, getting back to the last thing we spoke about. It's like almost like a bit of a snobbery. But if that had been like August Rodin that run into fourth, they'd be going, what a great run that one. Yeah, Derby. Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, I haven't watched that one back, so it's going to give me some substance to go and have a look. And I'm going to have a look at his breeding. But I did remember, I remember the run, and I did like the way, because just to be honest, it did sort of stop Dubai Mile coming fourth, and because I thought that was a formality that was going to get fourth up, inside the final furlong, because he's definitely going to be staying, isn't he? Dubai Mile, the Johnson horse. I mean, he's already, he's going to get 1.5 miles for sure. So you think, you think he's going to outstay him, if you like, in the Guineas was a good effort. So I'll watch that back with them, and I'll private message you, mate, to see what I think.
Well, the analysis, I'll just read this out for people. It's only one line. Short of room at start. In
that
rear.
Doesn't help.
So you've not got what you want there. No. Headway from 2 out, was ridden over 1 out, but kept on and went 4th at finish. He's run a belter.
Yes, and like I say, if that was August Road there, he'd have shortened for the Derby, wouldn't he, on the back of a run like that?
Oh my God, he'd have gone favourite. Favourite.
If he was 2 to 1, they'd have shortened him to 6 to 4. Yeah.
Be very, very careful when people are saying that you had to be up front. The horses from the back had no chance, because this horse was behind all those disappointed, and he passed them all. Yeah. So,
Yeah, I'll have a look, mate. That's a good little shout. I'm trying to go on to my last two. Well, I'm going to go last one, but I'm going to touch a couple here because I thought there were two that really took my eye in this. We're going to go to the race. We're going to headquarters, and it's on Saturday. I think it was Saturday. Let's have a look here. The 1 mile, 1 furlong, sort of over the Cambridgeshire trip. The Suffolk Stakes, the Heritage Handicap over 1 mile, won by King of Conquest, who was up there all the way.
325.
Yeah, 325. Led virtually all the way, to be fair, and did battle on. It's a good performance. I thought he was going to drop away, and he ran very well. Saga did his usual, come there to look like he was going to win and didn't. Looked like Frankie gave it a bad ride, but I think he's an hard ride, and everyone's going to overbet him next time again, this Saga. He's not also I like, to be honest. He's a sort of horse you want to be backing each way about 10, 12 to 1, and then when he's 2 to 1, you've got to be against him. He had every chance here. Little bit unlucky, you could say, but I still don't know if he would have gone by. He's that kind of horse. So the two for me I'm taking from this race is, first of all, was my main pick, was Toshizu, who was out the back, ridden by Jamie Spencer, given a typical Jamie Spencer ride. And he got blocked off a couple of times between the 2 and the 1 and eventually got out. Looked like he was going to finish 6th, but he then stayed on into 4th. And I can see him running really well in a Hunt Cup, and he'll be about 50 to 100 to 1 in a Hunt Cup. A stiff mile at Ascot. He does go on he does proves he goes in big fields. He's run half decent race in the Lincoln. He certainly won't be going up again. He might get dropped another pound. This horse is going to be running all the big 1 mile handicaps this season, and it's going to be one with his name on. And I kind of thought he was the main pick, but the other one really that you've got to say run a cracker was Not Trabel Bet. Real improved horse this season for Andrew Baldwin. Won easily at the all-weather finals day, and I thought that was possibly a bit of a fluke because I thought the 2 horses, I think it was Gosden had 2 in the race that were on the wrong part of the track that day. This horse was punted off the boards and thrashed them. This was a really good run, and I wonder if this horse won't be lined up for the Cambridgeshire come the end of the year, because it really, for me, it sort of took off. You watch it come back, it looked like it was going to go by, but if they can keep his mark to around where he is now, he'd have an excellent chance come the end of the season. So one sort of more for the sort of like, purist sort of later in the year, if you want to have a look at the anti-post markets for the Cambridgeshire come sort of, 6 weeks out, have him in mind. Not Trabel Bet, and also thought that Toshizu was worth putting in your tracker.
Yeah, wouldn't argue there. The only thing I would say about this race for people when they look back is bear something in mind. The official result, they've got the Racing Post site on and the race form and whatever, and they say good to soft. I watched that race and thought they're making a lot of impression.
Yes,
immediately
it's soft,
after
isn't it?
The comments of the trainers and the jockeys, they went out and immediately changed the going to soft. The times later in the day suggest it was nearer heavy than soft. So where they got good to soft from. So when you look at that was deep ground, and you're right. Cambridgeshire would be run on similar ground 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
So
not Trabel Bet actually probably would prefer better ground. I'd say Toshizu probably likes a bit of cut, but but he could do. He's proven he goes in soft as well now, which is handy.
He's proven he goes on it now, hasn't he?
Yeah. It was a funny run from Majestic in the race. He looked like he didn't fancy it at all. Dropped out the telly, and he ran on into 9th. It was a funny run, but I do think if you've backed anything on Saturday in those conditions, and they have run poorly, please forgive him a run. Because whether I fancy running those conditions is another thing, and it does make punting quite difficult. It is difficult in them conditions sometimes. Sometimes, even though you've got horses that have gone on soft ground, for some reason they just don't fancy it. It's not easy.
The other thing I'd say about Not Trabel Bet, it's another example of, I say constantly, that Newcastle requires so much stamina, much more than any other. And so when you get a horse that wins well there, it shows it's got stamina. It would tell me that these slugfests on soft ground, it's kind of proven it'll be right up its street. And I was going to say one
more thing I think is important as well, which is very useful, because this was a 1 mile 1, and when you get to these big sort of 1 mile handicaps, like your Hunt Cups and the Clip Logistics or whatever, them sort of races, the big field handicaps, you nearly always want a horse that stays a bit further. So it's always very helpful if there's a good 6 furlong race, the Wokingham or whatever, horses have got form over 7. I do think it's really important when you're looking at, rather than out and out sprinter, you've got your likes of Summergans who run an okay race. I do think he wants to drop a couple of pounds. Watch him again at the end of the year. But these horses that sort of have got form over further, it's always always really useful coming to the big races, isn't it? You've got to bear that in mind.
Definitely, yeah. We've proven that we're going to be hitting the line. Yeah,
Yeah,
excellent.
especially going each way. Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah,
mate.
yeah. Going to each way. Yeah, brilliant. Nice one, Judge. I shall see you on Friday, mate.
Look forward to it, mate. And be lucky this week at Chester.
Yeah, exactly. Chester, plenty going on. Good luck, mate.
Be lucky, mate.